tragedy. On the way to school, a bus careened off a busy Houston route, killing 2 students this fall. Now, doubts and renewed concerns about bus safety in Texas.
Recently, the federal government said having seatbelts on all school buses across the nation would save 2 lives a year. It's already the law for all new buses in Texas. But KXAN investigator Josh Hinkle discovered that law isn't working the way parents hoped it would.
Yes, Robert, it was meant to put this, a seatbelt, across your child's lap and shoulder on all new buses districts buy. But we discovered that law is not protecting students at all. March 29th, 2006.
Really, life is a jumble after that.
A bus bound for a girls' soccer tournament overturned on a rainy highway.
Your heart just sinks as a parent. This can't really be happening.
Steve Foreman's daughter Allison was trapped under the bus, her arm nearly severed beneath the wreckage for more than an hour.
The news reported that 2 girls had been killed.
Thought that I would go to the hospital to meet the girls returning. Ashley never made it back.
Brad Brown's daughter Ashley and her teammate Alicia Benura died that day.
I remember the first time that Brad and I got together, and I said, you know, I don't know how to really sit here and talk to you because you lost your daughter, my daughter survived, and he said, let's just do what we've got to do. Let's just get together and try to make a difference.
It started with what that bus from Beaumont was missing.
Because there were no seat belts, she'd been violently thrown out of her seat.
That would have allowed them to stay in the seat, even surviving an accident as horrible as that one.
Families impacted by the crash took their concerns to the state capitol and eventually saw the passage of Ashley and Alicia's law. It requires lap shoulder belts on all new buses if state funding is available. One bus alone is at least $80,000. A bus with those belts cost at least another $7,000. So lawmakers gave $10 million to the Texas Education Agency to give to school districts that first round. It was enough to strap in about 70,000 students. But soon faced with budget cuts, the TEA slashed most of the funding from the program and never asked lawmakers for more money. 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, there was no money that was requested for this program. Why?
It's very difficult to award money when the districts themselves don't show an interest in it.
Just 12 of more than 1,000 school districts in the entire state applied, and only 4 out of that number actually qualified and received funding. The TEA says, simply put, the program didn't make financial sense for many school administrators because it didn't pay for the entire cost of the bus, only the seatbelts.
It's like telling you, Josh, I'll pay for the seatbelts if you go out and buy a new car. Well, the heavy lifting is still in buying the vehicle itself.
And again, the law does not require districts to buy buses with belts if the state has no funding for them. Senator Eddie Lucio wrote Ashley and Alicia's law, and he admits it didn't live up to what he promised parents. In the last few sessions, have you asked for money for this specific program?
Quite frankly, it was one that I should have paid a little bit more attention to. I was hoping that there would be funds made available for that cause, but it just got by me. During our investigation, he wrote to state leaders, urging them to take up the issue once again, considering more money or maybe a statewide seatbelt mandate if it's not available. There's no need for us to ignore that issue ever again.
It would be a beautiful thing in Ashley's memory to see an effective legislative effort to make lap shoulder belts on school buses the law in Texas.
In a few months, these fathers will mark 1 decade since the crash that changed their lives. And in that time, their frustration over school bus safety has only grown.
When is enough going to be enough?
What excuses have to be made for school administrators in ignoring this?
After another bus crash killed 2 students this fall in Houston, more lawmakers like Senator Lucio have called for action. He's now specifically urging the legislature to see if school districts are complying with the current law, recommend ways to ensure every school bus in the state has lap shoulder belts, and develop ways to guarantee state funding for those belts. Now, these are goals ahead of the next legislative session in 2017. We will keep checking back on that progress.
So obviously, Josh, these lawmakers need the most accurate and complete information from the school districts in order to make the best decisions for children.
But earlier on KXA News at 6, you told us getting that information will be tough.
Right. The law actually requires districts to report all bus accidents and injuries to the state each year, but we discovered many of them have not been doing that, some right here in Central Texas. So we went to school administrators in our area and asked for those numbers ourselves so parents can actually have their district's safety records. All 34 districts in our area are on our website, KXAN.com, right now. We will tell you why the state is letting districts get away with that and why that might change after we started investigating. Her name is in a dusty old book at the Travis County Morgue, Christine Morton. Scrawled in the writing of the man who performed her autopsy in 1986, Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Roberto Bayardo.
The body was found in the bedroom of the couple's home south of Georgetown, August 13th.
A massive blunt injury, 8 blows to the head, still in her blood-stained pink nightgown.
Then I proceeded to examine the rest of the internal organs.
Bayardo discovered food semi-digested in her stomach, pointing him to when she last ate and when she died. That timing and his testimony helped put away Morton's husband for murder.
But with the medical examiner's testimony conflicting with Morton's alibi,
I did not do this.
Morton's autopsy was one of nearly 800 Bayardo performed that year, a massive caseload with little oversight from county leaders. In fact, an analysis of Bayardo's near 3 decades in office shows he consistently performed between 395 and 823 autopsies a year, far exceeding the nationally recommended limit of 325.
My workload consisted of doing about 3 to 4 autopsies every day, every single day, including weekends.
In your expert opinion, is more than 800 autopsies too much?
Yes, that is greatly excessive, and I would be very concerned about the significant error rate.
Dr. Max Buya is a professor at the University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston, known nationally for his expertise in autopsies. He explained by moving through cases too quickly, a medical examiner runs a risk.
Inaccurate diagnoses regarding the cause of death and also the manner of death.
Somebody had to do the work, and there was nobody else to do it.
Did you ever have concerns that doing that many autopsies a year might present challenges with anything in court?
I never thought about that.
You are released subject to the terms and conditions of the bond.
Thank God this wasn't a capital case, that I only had life.
25 years after Christine Morton's murder, her husband was cleared of the crime. The fight for his freedom included a sworn statement from Bayardo, saying the way he determined when Morton died was not scientific. That statement made us wonder, what else would Christine Morton's autopsy report reveal? The county where she was killed didn't have its own medical examiner, so they brought her body here to Bayardo in Travis County, along with $250 for his work.
I was angry about it. I mean, it made me indignant. And then I remember him giving us some resistance about telling us, well, how much did you earn?
Dr. Bayardo.
Former Travis County Judge Bill Alshire says he discovered in the early 90s the ME was supplementing his salary by examining corpses for other counties. It shows how many autopsies he did, and it shows how much money he got.
That was a financial incentive for him to see how many autopsies he could do.
Doing the coronary removals and doing the tissue work.
That passes unanimously.
Travis County commissioners eventually came to a formal agreement to handle the funds.
The Commissioner's Court does not authorize you to continue doing autopsies for them unless we have a contract in place.
The contract made sure the county made money, even though Bayardo would still keep a cut. And this arrangement did not slow him down. Over time, Bayardo raked in around $2.6 million performing autopsies for 45 other counties.
Bayardo had operated independently without any oversight for way too long. Frankly, in my opinion, he blew it. And I think he stayed longer than he should have.
I earned it. I had the capacity to do it and the professional knowledge to do it. So what's the problem?
The problem is, Bayardo's work and the medical examiner's office faced heavy criticism in the early 2000s, like the accuracy of his conclusions in a police shooting.
Daniel Rocha's preliminary report showed him having no drugs in his system. Later, the pathologist detected marijuana.
The misidentification of a body.
The autopsy described the body as 23-year-old Clayton Daniels, but a DNA test showed it was the corpse of 81-year-old Charlotte Davis.
And the lack of national accreditation, which would have helped ensure quality and standards. It was something we discovered Bayardo never sought in 28 years on the job.
Is there anything that you wish you would have done differently as chief medical examiner?
Absolutely no.
Nothing?
Nothing. I did everything to the best of my abilities, to the best of my knowledge, and I don't have no remorse, no problems.
Bayardo stepped down in 2006, but Travis County prosecutors still call him to testify about autopsies he performed. In fact, we've learned this summer he's on the list of witnesses in the trial against Mark Norwood, who police say beat this woman, Deborah Baker, to death in her own bed in 1988. Turns out, 2 years before, Norwood was the actual killer of the woman in our story, Christine Morton. Critics say had Bayardo done things right with Morton's autopsy, Baker might still be alive today, and we will follow that trial very closely.
Josh, I'm curious what Bayardo had to say in his defense.
That he didn't have enough money or resources. We do know eventually, though, he did get more staff and money and even a new morgue, and his caseload was still very high.
And could Bayardo ever face anything legally because of everything you've uncovered?
Well, the Texas Medical Board typically hasn't gone after medical examiners unless there was clear evidence an autopsy was deliberately mishandled, which could open the door for criminal or civil cases. But with Bayardo, there's no proof of that, and he's not practicing anymore.
Josh Hinkle discovered billions of gallons of your water are still wasted through leaks every year.
That's right. That man you just saw, he's an Austin Water customer we tracked down who called the utility after a pipe broke on his property, leaking 13 gallons a minute. Crews came out and shut it off, which took some time. Multiplied that by 1,500. That is the amount of breaks they had to fix in the past year alone. Nearly impossible to get ahead of quickly.
We do everything that you can possibly do to manage leaks.
But sometimes that's just not enough, by a long shot. In the past year, Austin leaked nearly 4.8 billion gallons of water. That's enough to fill up Lady Bird Lake twice.
What do you say to those users that have seen rate hikes and they've been under water restrictions in recent years when they hear that number?
I say we're performing very well, that number has been very well controlled when you look comparatively at Austin statistics.
Austin Water head Greg Mazaris explains part of that management means replacing pipes. 10 to 12 miles a year, but at that speed, with 900 miles total of new pipe needed, it would take close to a century to finish.
Well, we have a ranking system where we go through and look at factors such as how many times it broke in the past.
Some lines are cast iron and date back to the 1930s. Some leaks are obvious, like this geyser off Palmer Lane that lost more than 5 million gallons.
Sometimes it's difficult to find those leaks because they're so far underground, like this 66-inch transmission line, one of the major water suppliers to East Austin. It took special sonar for crews to pinpoint it this summer, even though they discovered it was leaking millions of gallons of water last year. Why has it taken so long to fix that particular leak?
I wouldn't characterize it as a long time. First, it's a transmission system that you can't take out of service easily. It's an important part of our system. And you don't want to start digging willy-nilly.
Yeah, but this isn't just a leak in a pipe. This is a transmission line. It's big.
Yeah, some of these leakages are huge. Absolutely.
Austin Councilman Don Zimmerman sits on the city's Public Utility Committee and says it's clear more funding could help speed up the repair and replacement process.
What can the council do about that, though?
That's a good question. Now, the Austin Water Utility is one of our enterprise funds, and the management answers directly to the city manager. They don't answer directly to the city council. So what the city council can do is direct the city manager to put a focus on fixing the problem.
That's something you're prepared to do?
I'll bring that forward as a resolution, absolutely.
Now, the city manager would not comment on our story, but we will follow up with him when the budget comes together. We will also follow up on Zimmerman's proposal next month when his committee meets. But it might not be enough, at least immediately. Look at it this way. With the drought, Austin Water has restricted how much water you use since 2009. That means you're buying less water, which is why the rate you're paying has gone up consistently during that time. And Mazzaros tells me another rate increase is in store next year.